Boop. And thank you all for clicking whatever buttons Zoom asks you to click or got it or other things. And thank you so much, Carolina, for leading our sit today. Sending it over to you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really, truly an honor for me to facilitate a meditation here today. I'm so glad. I'm so glad we're here together. And I am going to, I'd like to begin with just reading a little quote. This one in particular spoke to me today, as we are always beginning again and finding our way through life. My destination is no longer a place, but a new way of seeing. This was a Marcel Proust quote. So I invite you to sit back, and if you are comfortable closing your eyes, I invite you to close your eyes or simply gaze down as you begin this practice of mindfulness meditation. Welcoming the present moment as we sit here, or perhaps if you're more comfortable standing or laying down, whatever position you choose for this sit. May it be comfortable. And so we'll begin by bringing to awareness the space that you're in at this moment. Noticing your feet on the floor, the contact of your feet on the floor or the cushion, the carpet. And bring into awareness the sense of being held by earth. And with loving awareness, noticing that at this moment, every sentient being on earth is being held by earth. We're all in this together. And continuing with noticing the awareness of the body. Arriving in this moment with present loving awareness. Noticing the contact of the body with other parts of where you're touching. Noticing the sit bones on the chair or cushion or bed. And noticing the sensations of the hands resting on your lap or the chair or the cushion. Bringing the attention on how it feels to be alive right now. And noticing the awareness of how it feels to be connected to others here in this group on this Zoom screen. And yet, we are supporting each other's practice. We're supporting each other's path in life by being present here in this moment. And now bringing the attention to the rhythm of the breath in the body. And if it's possible, noticing a sense of awe just for the awareness that we're breathing. That in this moment, the body is working together, every single cell, every single organ, working together to allow this breath to happen in this moment. How amazing. To welcome each breath as a friend. Noticing the in-breath in and the out-breath out. And bringing to awareness that at this moment, every sentient being on earth alive is breathing. Just like us, just like you, just like me. And when you notice the activity of the mind, the stories, the planning, the worrying, whatever's happening in the mind, recognizing it as part of being human, that's how the mind is. And the invitation right now is to observe the mind's activity with kindness, with understanding, with compassion. And to return the attention back to the sensations of the next breath. This present moment, this breath, this sensation in the body. The sounds around us. This is the present moment. And so when we're distracted by the activities of the mind, and we notice that is a moment of mindfulness. And we can notice if there's judgment. We can notice if there's an inner critic. Or perhaps there's a loving message in the mind. Whatever we notice, it's a moment of mindfulness, the noticing, the paying attention. And it's an opportunity to shift the attention back to the sensations of the next breath. And we'll sit in silence without guidance just for a few moments with your own practice, noticing with loving awareness. And notice what you're aware of. Just simply asking the question, what am I aware of right now? With a loving kindness, recognizing that in mindfulness, it's all okay. We practice mindfulness not to become great meditators. We practice mindfulness to be kinder to ourselves and to lead a life that's present with loving awareness. And the other part of mindfulness is that we can always begin again. To gain self-compassion. And if possible, to be kinder to that inner critic voice. And saying, no, I'm okay. This is good. Good enough. And returning the attention back to the sensations of the next breath. Staying present just as you are. And bringing the attention back to the sensations of the breath. Allowing the breath to become a source of loving kindness. A source of self-compassion. A source of present awareness. Present loving awareness. And as we come to the end of this sit, I invite you to a moment of self-compassion touch, bringing the right hand over your heart and feeling the touch of the hand over your heart. Feeling the soothing, loving touch of present loving awareness. this touch soothes and calms the nervous system. It actually activates the endorphins in the brain, which bring about a sense of well-being to this moment. May you be well. May you experience joy and calmness and loving kindness. And when you're ready and in your own time, you can open your eyes. And return to our Zoom screen. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you so much, Carolina.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. And thank you, everyone. Hello, hello. So glad that we all get to sit together. And yeah. And for those who join mid-sit, uh, welcome. We are still the InsightLA Mindfulness and Deep Suffering Practice Group. And we're a practice group, or we're an affinity group. We like to call this the Hope Group, healing ourselves through the present experience. And yeah, so glad we're all here together. And this is a very special day. Anytime, Patrick, anytime you come, man, this is a special day. And thank you also for being here. Um, well, thanks. Thanks for being you. And for those of you that have been here on previous Dharma talks that Patrick's given, or for those as the first time, Patrick, you're awesome. Patrick, a senior Dharma teacher in Zen tradition, has sat more than 100 meditation retreats. Um, and I think this talk in particular is very special, Patrick, because this topic of love today, what is love? Um, I can't think of a better person to talk about this today, man, than you. Um, Given that you are a musician, you are a father, you are a husband, uh, you're a practitioner. Uh, you just have so many different ways that you have experienced and given and received love, right? Music, words, helping to grow a little human. So many different ways that you give and receive love. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm really looking forward to your talk. And thank you so much for being here, man. And oh, I forgot the most important thing of all. I love you. And it is so nice to find out that, because nobody told me growing up that it's okay to love another person that's not a romantic. I thought romantic love was the only love. But then I learned later on in life that there's all these different types of love. There's love of friendship. There's love of people who are cut from the same cloth. There's love of service. There's love of, so it's just really nice to acknowledge, and I don't have to fight it anymore. Like I love you. And it feels really good to say that. Um, and that's it. Declaration of love. So over to you, brother. Thank you so much for sharing with us for about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll have community after that. So over to you, my brother.
Love you too, Brian. um, yes, so, love is it's a very interesting thing because I think most of the time when we think of love, we think of the feeling of love, right? So the feeling of a new relationship, right? The excitement, or the feeling that we have when we're around someone that we care about, right? Um, but the feeling of love is not love, right? Feeling of love, it's just the feeling. Um, love is what you are. Everyone here, you already are love. Um, love is true. Well, in Zen, we say that true love has no subject and has no object. So before I, before you, before they, before all of those things, right? In that space, already, your true self functions clearly, moment to moment to moment. What happens is, you know, life is messy, life is dirty, you know, we get hung up, we get hurt, we get wounded, and we internalize those things, and we're constantly building on those things, right? And for me personally, um, this idea of love was difficult for that reason for a long time. I've been practicing maybe already like 10 years or something. I've done a lot of hard practicing, and I just kind of, I noticed, my mind sort of becoming calmer and sort of things, but I still had all this anger, and I would get really irritated when I would hear, like people talking about love, right? Or like, in like the spiritual traditions, or in sort of new age tradition, whatever, I would just annoy me, you know, like, because it was like, well, God, that's such fluffy bullshit, like that is not my reality. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't like, and then I started kind of looking at that, you know, and it hit me. I was like, wow, I'm, you know, doing all this practice, you know, and I'm really sitting here like shitting on love, right? Like in my mind, it just kind of like was really down. I was like, well, what is that? What is it that keeps, me from experiencing it that way? You know, and it is that. It's just that thinking, right? Um, there's a story that I tell sometimes that I feel like perfectly encapsulates this, just our human experience. But so I was in Canada, and I was uh, walking behind these two guys. I was playing a show up there, and I was playing at a college, so I was walking behind these two people who were probably students. And this guy was talking to his friend, and he's just talking about, like, you know what, human beings are inherently selfish. That's just the deal. That's what we are. That's evolution. That's, it's survival of the fittest, and that's just what human beings are. We're inherently selfish, you know. Da da da. He's going, and I'm just kind of walking and listening. And then as he's walking, in mid sentence, he's telling his friend just like how selfish we all are inherently. Like that's the core of our being and his whole sort of philosophical outlook. So as he's telling his friend this mid sentence, there's a woman who's coming towards us, and she slips on the ice coming up the curb. And mid sentence, he reaches out and he grabs her. So what is that? All right. So all this that we kind of like pile on, like all these words, all this thinking, all these stories that we tell ourselves, that we tell each other about how we're not good enough, right? That we don't belong, that we're broken, you know, all these kinds of things. This is just thinking, all right? But this, that was before thinking, right? So always, 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 our true self is always revealing itself. It's always peeking out, showing us, you know. But it's really hard to see because it's hard to give ourselves that, really, when it comes down to it. You know, one of the biggest things that keeps us from really, really experiencing that, because our capacity for love, compassion is truly infinite, truly infinite. And what cuts that off, what keeps us from experiencing that, is a shame. It's a shame we feel, right? It's the stories that we tell ourselves. You know, the stories maybe that we've heard from other people when we were young who were experiencing their own shame, right? Who internalize that trauma themselves, right? Pass it on. And then we pass it on, right? On and on and on like this. But none of that actually touches your true self. It's always there. It's always free. It's always clear. And it always functions moment to moment to moment. Spontaneous compassion and love. But the hardest thing to do is to give ourselves that, you know. That's why this practice is so powerful and so important, you know, because as we practice, we start to see that little story, you know, that little story that we're spinning about how we're not good, about how we don't deserve love, about how, you know, we're not even sure love exists, about all these kind of like, all this kind of stuff, you know. And the more that we see that, and then we just, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to change it. You don't have to push it away. We don't say, oh, I shouldn't think that. That's bad. It's bad that I'm thinking that. I'm a bad meditator, right? You know, we don't have to do any of that, okay? You just see it, and you come back again and again and again and again. You get pulled away, you get pulled into the story. Notice that you're pulled away, come back again and again and again. And the more and more and more you come back, and Zen, we call this making your center strong, okay? So, you know, coming back is letting go. So making your center strong means that like this just gets quicker and quicker. You know, it's not that shit doesn't come up. It's not that pain doesn't come up, suffering doesn't come up, right? It's not that we don't get angry, that we don't lash out, right? We're human. It's okay. It's part of our experience. Okay. But accepting that, not judging any of that, just noticing it. Oh, okay. Pulled away again. And then drop it again and again and again. And eventually that becomes almost automatic. And that's what we call making your center very strong, you know, so that as soon as something comes up, already it's liberated, already let it go. And then once you kind of like, you know, your center becomes stronger, you know, then notice that kind of everything that comes up, everything's always changing, changing, changing. Where do these things come from? Where do they go? Where do they stay? Don't know, right? So from that place, love is very easy, right? From that place, love is no problem because love's not holding anything. It's not trying to prove anything. It doesn't have any agenda, right? One thing that I'm struck with constantly in my work on the suicide prevention line We look at the world today and we all think, like, God, what a mess. It's such a mess today. Like everybody's so angry, everybody's holding their opinions so tightly, everybody's so quick to like anger and outrage, and there's so much like suffering, you know. Every day I do this work, I'm always struck by the fact that like everyone really needs the same thing, which is just love, talk to some person who doesn't feel seen by their parents, who's gay, and their parents are religious or whatever, you know. What does that person need? They need love, right? I see you. It's okay. It's okay to be you. I'm here for you. We're in this together, like Carolina said, right? And honestly, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Like, that's what people need. It doesn't matter what they're dealing with, And that's the thing. Love looks differently for every person, every situation. You know, growing up, I grew up in Colorado. It's changed a bit now because so many people moved here from California. But Colorado is very, very churchy. So growing up, there was a lot of that around, and it's fine. But I remember when I was very young, hearing like, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Do unto others as you would have done unto you, right? And that's an extremely, extremely powerful and deep teaching. That's not Christian, that's not Buddhist, that's not Taoist or Muslim or anything. That's human. That's being a human being, right? But if we can fully embody that, then we can truly understand what we say when we say love has no subject and no object. So throughout my day, like it's kind of it's a practice, but it's also more and more kind of just becomes the way to kind of go through life, But every interaction that I have, I ask myself, like, how do I show this person unconditional love right now? And that varies from situation to situation, right? It's not appropriate for me to, take someone home with me and, bring them into the house maybe, or, whatever. Little interactions with the cashier or whatever, But I just put that into that interaction, Even if it's just saying, have a good day. I do with as much love as I can, right? Talking to people on the line. What does unconditional love look like for this person in this situation right now? In this interaction, what do they need from me? How can I show up? We've talked a lot. Well, I've talked a lot in the past about how all of our suffering comes from our focus on me. I need this, I need that, I don't want this, I don't want that, right? And it's nothing to feel bad about. We all do it. It's our human condition. And it's one of the greatest ironies of our lives that we experience suffering the most intensely, the most acutely, when we don't want suffering, and when we're just, I don't want this, I don't want to suffer, right? Because at that moment, we are completely focused on ourselves. We are completely self-absorbed, And again, this is nothing that we should beat ourselves up about. But we should think of it. We should look at this. That's interesting, right? So caring for others. All right. You know, every one of you, I'm sure, has like had an interaction where maybe you got to practice some kindness. You got to practice that. Give that person just some unconditional, unexpected love. You know, whether it's like, you know, I'm gonna give this guy $20 on the street. I'm gonna, you know, whatever it is. Like, and remember, like that feeling that you got after that, it did make you feel good, right? That's not a bad thing, you know. That feeling, uh, that feeling of love, right? That's a byproduct, you know. It's a wonderful benefit that we get, you know. But it's interesting. So like more and more that we focus on how can I make you happy? What can I do? How can I meet you in this moment? You know, how can I make you okay? The more and more that we do that, the less and less we are completely focused on our own stuff. You know, and the more like spaciousness we start to feel, more open we start to feel, the more confidence and faith we start to have that like, oh, maybe I'm not such a big piece of shit that I always keep telling myself I am, right? Because look at this capacity that I have for kindness and love, and it feels good, right? It's not complicated, it's very simple. So it's important to try to find that, try to work with that. You know, one of the ways that in Zen, you know, I always say that Zen is a practice of responsibility. So moment to moment to moment, we're always responsible for our mind, our speech, our body. We're responsible for our own shit, taking responsibility for that. And so one of the ways that, you know, in Zen, we have like what we call the 4 pillars, right? So pillar, and I've talked about this before, I'm not going to go into it right now, but so great faith, great question, great bodhisattva vow, and great doubt. All right. And great love, great compassion, bodhisattva vow, that's the beginning, middle, and end, right? That's all of this. But a lot of people get hung up on that part, right? Because like this notion of how do we save all beings? How can we save all beings? Can't even save myself, right? How do I save all beings from suffering when, you know, I'm just sitting here suffering, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we work with it, and one of the ways that I've found that I feel like is very helpful is through you know, this kind of aspirational sort of practice. So you know, like I'll do you know, do a little prayer, a little vow, you know, like let me take all the suffering, may all the suffering of all beings ripen in me, right? And may all beings, may they have all the benefits of all my good action, all my practice. May they have all the benefits. You know, so I'll kind of like work with that. But here's where the practice of responsibility comes in. Okay, so there's a part of you when you do this kind of practice that says, nah, I think I'm good. I think I'd like to probably keep some of that stuff for me, and I don't really want their suffering to ripen in me, right? So you notice that, okay? Just be honest with it. You don't have to feel bad about yourself for it, okay? You don't have to beat yourself up about it, but you just kind of notice it. All right, that's interesting. What is that? Don't know. Who is actually afraid? Who is afraid of suffering here? Right? Who? So, you know, probably you're all sitting there going, I am, you know. But ask yourself, like, what is this? What is this I? All right. What is this I that is so afraid of suffering? That, who is what is this I that I feel like goes through, all these different experiences? Where is it? Is it in my head? Is it in my chest? Is it my little finger? You know, we kind of think of this I as sort of finite, meaning like since the times we were a little kid, we've always had the same kind of uh, conception of this I. I am doing this. I am doing that. Right. So where is this I that never changes? It's not your body, right? Because your body certainly is not the same body you had when you were a kid. I think every 10 years or so, like literally every atom in your body is different. Every cell in your body is different. I think. So it's not your body. What is it? Your mind? What is this mind? Where is your mind? Okay. So you keep this question and you just work with that. You don't hold it too tightly. Just keep that question. Don't know. Okay. We say that don't know is before I, before thinking arises. Okay. So from that place, say correct situation, correct relationship, and correct function is possible. Okay. So in our daily life, we're always like making a mess of things, right? Because what I want always gets kind of like caught up into the situation, right? Always distorts things, always gets us into trouble, right? When we come back to just don't know, that mind before thinking, before there's I, before me and you, subject and object, before this like, turning wheel, right? Then we can respond to that situation. No problem, whatever situation it is. Okay, and that's love. Zen Master Sung San, someone asked him once, he said, Zen Master Sung San, what is love? And he says, I ask you, what is love? And then the student was kind of confused. And Zen Master Sung San said, that is love. You ask me, I ask you. That's love. So I love you all. And I hope that you feel comfortable asking any questions that come to mind. It's a safe place. So I'll open it up now.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Let me turn off the recording.